You wake up on the cold concrete floor of a dark basement somewhere in rural Georgia. The smell of decay and old smoke penetrates your nostrils as a constant reminder that the world you knew died 43 days ago. Your clothes, the same ones you've been wearing for a week, are stuck to your body with a mixture of sweat, dirt, and stains you'd rather not identify. The throbbing headache you feel isn't just from lack of food or constant dehydration. It's the psychological weight of having seen your hometown transform into a walking cemetery, of having lost everyone you loved, of having been forced to do things you never imagined you'd be capable of doing to keep breathing for one more day. You remember perfectly the day it all started. You were at work complaining about the bad coffee from the machine when the first news came over the radio. Outbreak of violence in Atlanta, they said. People attacking other people. You laughed at the time, thinking it was just another sensationalist story. How wrong you were. Now, 3 meters above your head, you can hear the shuffling footsteps of the dead. They discovered someone was using this basement as shelter and have been circling the abandoned building for 2 days. You count at least 6 different pairs of feet by the rhythm and weight of the steps. 6 undead that would very much like to turn you into one of them. Your last real meal was 4 days ago, a can of beans found in the rubble of a looted house. Since then, you've survived on dirty water from a rain puddle and some leaves you hoped weren't poisonous. Your stomach doesn't just hurt from hunger, it seems to be devouring itself from the inside out. The improvised axe by your side is your only protection. You made it by tying a metal blade from a destroyed car to a broken broomstick handle with wire found in the trash. It's not much, but it has already saved your life 3 times. You can feel the familiar weight of the tool in your calloused hands, hands that were once soft and typed on computers, but now intimately know the violence necessary to survive. Sarah is sleeping against the opposite wall. You found her 2 days ago, tied up in the storage room of an abandoned gas station, about to be raped and killed by 3 men you had to kill to save her. She still wakes up screaming every night, reliving the trauma. You understand the feeling. Your own nightmares are populated by faces of people you were forced to leave behind. The decision to save her was simultaneously the most human and most stupid thing you've done since the apocalypse began. Human because you couldn't just walk away and let her die. Stupid because now you have to find food for 2 people, have to move slower, have to deal with her nighttime screams that might attract walkers. But there's something comforting about not being completely alone. In the last 43 days, you've talked more to inanimate objects than to human beings. Your own voice started to sound strange, hoarse, and weak from lack of use. With Sarah here, at least you remember what it's like to have a conversation, even if it's whispered and full of fear. You get up slowly, trying not to make noise that might alert the dead above. Every movement is calculated, every step is planned. You've learned that survival isn't about courage or strength, it's about patience, caution, and the willingness to do whatever is necessary to see another dawn. The water you have will last 1 more day, maybe 2 if you ration severely. The food ran out yesterday. This means you need to leave this hiding place soon, no matter how many walkers are waiting above. Staying here means dying slowly from thirst and hunger. Leaving means possibly dying quickly being devoured. These aren't choices anyone should have to make, but this is the world now. You walk silently to the small basement window and peer through the accumulated dirt on the glass. Outside, you can see the legs of at least 4 walkers wandering aimlessly through the yard. One of them is wearing what's left of a nurse's uniform. Another wears torn jeans and a bloody t-shirt that says, "World's Best Dad." Each of them was once a person with dreams, fears, families. Now they're just predators, driven by a primitive instinct to consume human flesh. Sarah stirs in her sleep and murmurs something unintelligible. You approach and notice she's sweating, despite the cold. Fever, that's all you needed. In the world before, a fever would be treated with pharmacy medicine and a few days of rest. Here, it can be a death sentence. You have no antibiotics, no painkillers, not even a thermometer to monitor her condition. You put your hand on her forehead and feel the heat radiating from her skin. Definitely feverish. It could just be stress and dehydration, or it could be an infection from one of the cuts she suffered during her captivity, or worse, it could be a bite she's hidden from you. You've seen people hide bites before, denying reality until it's too late. Paranoia is justified in the apocalypse. Trusting the wrong person means death. Not trusting the right person can also mean death. You're constantly weighing risks, calculating probabilities, trying to read people's intentions in their eyes. Sarah seems genuine, but you thought the same about Marcus. Marcus was a middle-aged man you met 3 weeks ago. He seemed harmless, said he was a teacher before the apocalypse, that he just wanted to find his daughter in Atlanta. You traveled together for 5 days. He shared his food, helped set up camps, even made occasional jokes that reminded you of lost normality. On the 6th morning, you woke up and he was gone, along with your backpack, your water, and half the food you had. You never saw him again, but you learned a valuable lesson. In the apocalypse, even seemingly good people are capable of betrayal when survival is at stake. You gently touch Sarah's shoulder to wake her. Sarah, you whisper, "How are you feeling?" She opens her eyes slowly, disoriented for a moment, before remembering where she is. "I'm fine," she lies, but you can see in her eyes that it's not true. "You have a fever," you say. "I need to check if you have any infected wounds." "It's nothing," she insists, but her voice is weak. You have no choice but to trust her, for now. Forcing her to show possible wounds could cause a confrontation that would attract the walkers, but you keep the axe within reach, just in case. Outside, the sound of shuffling footsteps gradually diminishes. The walkers are moving away, probably attracted by some distant sound. This might be your only chance to escape. "We need to go," you whisper. Now, Sarah gets up with difficulty, leaning against the wall. She's clearly weak, but tries to hide it. You grab your nearly empty backpack and check the axe one last time. You slowly climb the wooden stairs that creak dangerously with each step. At the basement door, you stop and listen carefully. Silence. You open the door slowly and peek into the abandoned house. The house was once someone's home. Family photos still decorate some walls. Children's toys are scattered across the living room floor. There are dried bloodstains on the carpet and claw marks on the walls, evidence of a desperate fight each of former residents lost. You move through the house like a ghost, Sarah close behind. Each step is calculated, each breath is controlled. In the kitchen, you find a butcher knife that's still sharp, a better weapon than the improvised axe for close combat. Through the front window, you can see the street is relatively clear. Just 2 walkers wandering at a safe distance. An abandoned truck in the driveway offers partial cover for escape. "Let's go through the back door," you whisper to Sarah. "Stay low and follow my lead." You exit the house silently. The fresh morning air is a relief after 2 days in the stuffy basement, but you can't afford to appreciate it. Survival means constant movement, constant vigilance. The backyard leads to a small forest that might offer cover, but forests can also hide walkers, and the sound of breaking branches underfoot could alert any dead nearby. Every option has risks. You move toward the trees when Sarah stumbles and falls. The sound echoes through the quiet yard like a gunshot. Immediately, you hear moans responding. The walkers have detected sound and movement. "Get up," you whisper urgently, helping Sarah to her feet. But it's too late. 3 walkers emerge from behind the house, their dead eyes fixed on you. One is an elderly woman in a bathrobe, half her face torn off. Another is a teenager in a school uniform, with his chest open and ribs exposed. The third is indefinable, too decomposed to determine age or sex. You wield the axe and position yourself between Sarah and the dead. "Stay behind me," you order. The first walker approaches. You swing the axe in a wide arc, hitting the side of the elderly woman's head. The skull splits with a nauseating sound, like a watermelon being broken, and she collapses. The teenager moves faster than expected. You barely manage to step back before his rotting hands try to grab you. The smell of decomposition is unbearable up close, a mixture of putrefied flesh and body fluids that makes your eyes water. You land a blow to his neck, but the axe gets stuck in the bone. The walker continues moving, ignoring the wound that would be fatal to a living person. You pull desperately at the axe while he approaches. Sarah screams behind you. You turn and see the third walker has cornered her against the backyard fence. She has a rock in her hand, trying to keep him at distance, but it's only a matter of time. You manage to free the axe with a violent pull, knocking down the teenage walker in the process. Quickly, you turn and bury the blade in the top of the head of the walker, attacking Sarah. He crumbles instantly, but the noise of the fight has attracted more. You can hear moans coming from various directions. You have minutes, maybe seconds, before being surrounded. The forest. Now, you shout, abandoning any attempt at silence. You run toward the trees while more walkers emerge from nearby houses. One of them is dangerously close, a man in work clothes with half an arm missing. You knock him down with a push and keep running. The forest offers cover, but also makes it difficult to see approaching threats. Branches scratch your faces and clothes as you make your way through the dense vegetation. Sarah is struggling to keep up, her breathing heavy and irregular. After what seems like an eternity of running, you stop behind a large, fallen tree. The sound of moans is more distant now, but still audible. You're not safe, just momentarily hidden. I can't anymore, Sarah gasps, doubling over from exhaustion. You quickly check the surroundings. There's a small hunting cabin about 100 meters ahead, half hidden among the trees. It could be temporary refuge, or it could be a death trap full of walkers. See that cabin? You point. Let's check if it's clear. You approach the wooden structure cautiously. It's small, maybe 2 rooms, with broken windows and a door ajar. There are no obvious signs of walkers, but that means nothing. You peek through the window. The interior is dark, but seems empty. An overturned table, some cans scattered on the floor, a stone fireplace extinguished long ago. Stay here, you whisper to Sarah. I'll check. You enter through the door, slowly, axe in hand. The wooden floor creaks under your feet, but there's no response. A quick check confirms the cabin is empty, at least of immediate threats. It's clear. You call Sarah. She enters stumbling and immediately sits heavily on the floor. Her color is pale, and there's sweat running down her face, despite the cold. Sarah, I need you to be honest with me, you say, closing the door and checking the windows. Were you bitten? No, she answers too quickly. Can I trust you? Because if you were bitten and are hiding it, we're both going to die. She looks you in the eyes for a long moment. I wasn't bitten, I swear. You want to believe her, but trust is an expensive luxury in the apocalypse. You decide to monitor her closely while searching for supplies in the cabin. A quick search reveals some valuable finds: a dented but not expired can of soup, a half-full water bottle, and a jar of aspirin. It's not much, but it's enough to keep you alive for one more day. Here, you offer 2 aspirin to Sarah. This might help with the fever. She accepts gratefully and takes the pills with a small sip of water. Outside, you can still hear the distant moans of walkers searching for you. They'll find the cabin eventually. They always do. But for now, you have a few moments to rest and plan your next move. You sit near the window, keeping watch while Sarah rests. Fatigue pulls your eyelids down, but you fight against sleep. Falling asleep could mean never waking up again. Through the dirty window, you watch the trees swaying gently in the breeze. It's almost peaceful if you ignore the terrible context. For a moment, you allow yourself to imagine what it would be like if the world hadn't ended. Maybe you'd be at home watching TV, complaining about traffic, planning the weekend. These memories hurt more than any physical wound. They're cruel reminders of everything that was lost, of a life that will never exist again. You've learned to push them away. Focus only on the present moment, on the next decision you need to make to stay alive. Sarah has fallen asleep against the wall. Her lips are slightly blue, and she shivers even while sleeping. The fever is getting worse. You need to find antibiotics, or at least a warmer place for her to recover. There are rumors of a survivor camp about 20 kilometers north. Supposedly, they have a doctor medical supplies, even regular food. But rumors in the apocalypse are often exaggerated or completely false. Desperate people see hope where none exists. Still, it might be Sarah's best option. Staying here means watching her slowly get worse. Trying to reach the camp is risky, but at least there's a chance to save her. You hear a branch breaking outside. Your entire body tenses as you peek through the window. Nothing, but in the apocalypse, nothing can be more dangerous than something. Walkers make constant noise. Humans can be silent when they want to be. You wake Sarah gently. "We need to go," you whisper. Now, she opens her eyes with difficulty, still disoriented by the fever. What is it? Could be nothing, but we can't risk it. You quickly gather your few possessions. You help Sarah stand and notice she's even weaker than before. The fever is consuming her energy reserves quickly. Through the cabin's back door, you exit into the forest again. The sun is higher now, filtering through the leaves and creating patterns of light and shadow that could hide threats. You walk for about an hour, stopping frequently for Sarah to rest. Each pause is a risk. Staying still means being found, but she simply can't maintain the pace. Then you hear human voices echoing through the trees. "Saw footprints around here. Can't be far. When we find them, the man is ours." The woman goes to Jake first. Your blood freezes. These aren't friendly survivors. These are the voices of human predators, possibly the same men who kept Sarah prisoner before you killed them. No, wait. You killed 3 men. These are different voices. That means there were more of them, or they're a completely different group of bad people. In the apocalypse, there seems to be an infinite supply of humans willing to harm other humans. You grab Sarah's arm and point to a dense group of bushes. "Hide there," you whisper. "No matter what happens, don't come out until I return." What if you don't return? Then wait until dark and go north. There's supposedly a survivor camp there. You help her hide among the bushes, then position yourself behind a large tree with your axe ready. The voices are approaching. 3 men emerge between the trees. They're well armed. Rifles, pistols, knives. Their clothes are too clean, which means they have a safe place to return to. Resources, organization. This makes them much more dangerous than desperate survivors. "The footprints stop here," says the first man, a tall, thin guy with a scar across his face. "They can't have disappeared," responds the second, shorter and fatter, with tattoos covering his arms. "Maybe they climbed a tree," suggests the third, younger than the other 2. You count your options. 3 against 1, better armed, possibly more experienced in combat. Your chances in a direct confrontation are minimal. But if they find Sarah, she's dead anyway. The scarred man approaches dangerously close to the bushes where Sarah is hidden. "Hey," he suddenly shouts, "come out. We know you're there." Silence. "If you come out now, maybe we'll be nice. If we have to search, we'll have much more fun when we find you." You make a decision. Better to reveal your position and draw attention away from Sarah than let them find her. "I'm here," you shout, stepping out from behind the tree with your hands raised, but still holding the axe. The 3 men turn in your direction, rifles pointed at you. "Look at that," says the scarred man, smiling. One of the little piggies decided to show up. "Where's the woman?" asks the fat one. "What woman?" You lie. "Don't play with us," the young one says. "We saw 2 sets of footprints. She died yesterday. Fever." The scarred man studies your face, looking for signs of lying. "Where's the body?" "Left it for the walkers. Didn't want to carry dead weight." They seem to consider this. In the apocalypse, abandoning the dead is common practice. "Well," the fat one says, "then you'll have to be entertainment enough." They start approaching, rifles still pointed in your direction. You calculate distances, escape angles. With 3 rifles trained on, your options are extremely limited. "You know," you say, trying to buy time, "you guys seem to have a good setup here. Clean clothes, quality weapons. I bet you have a safe place to go back to." "That's right," the scarred one responds, "and we're always looking for new members, especially ones who know how to fight." "How do you know I can fight?" 3 of our men are dead at a gas station, 15 kilometers from here. Axe wounds, and you're carrying an axe. So these are, indeed, partners of the men you killed. That explains how they found your footprints so quickly. They were going to rape a woman, you say. I couldn't let that happen. Noble, the fat one mocks, but stupid. Our group has rules about property. They found her first. People aren't property. In our world, they are. The conversation is coming to an end. You can feel it. Soon they'll decide you're too problematic to recruit and too dangerous to leave alive. The young man takes a step to the side, creating a small opening between them. It's a minimal opportunity, but it might be the only one you'll get. You throw yourself to the right side. At the exact moment, you throw the axe toward the young one. The blade hits his shoulder, making him scream and drop the rifle. The other two fire, but you're already moving. One bullet whizzes past your ear, the other hits the tree behind you. You roll behind a thick tree while they reload. The young one is on the ground, moaning and trying to remove the axe from his shoulder. Son of a bitch, the fat one shouts. I'll make you pay for that. You need a weapon. The young one's rifle is on the ground about 10 meters from your position. You might reach it if you can distract the other two. Hey, you shout. You want to know where the woman really is? Where? The scarred one responds. If I tell you, will you let me go? Sure. He obviously lies. You grab a rock and throw it to the left, creating noise among the bushes. Immediately, you run in the opposite direction toward the fallen rifle. They realize the tricks too quickly and start shooting. You throw yourself on the ground and roll, grabbing the rifle and aiming back. Your first bullet hits the fat one in the chest. He falls backward, rifle flying from his hands. Your second bullet misses the scarred man by inches. He takes cover behind a tree and shouts back at you. You're just delaying the inevitable. We have 20 more men at our camp. Then you won't miss 3, you respond. Reloading, the young one has managed to remove the axe and is trying to crawl to cover, leaving a trail of blood. You have a clear shot at him, but something stops you from shooting a wounded, unarmed man. This hesitation almost cost you your life. The scarred man took advantage of your distraction to change position and now has a clear angle on you. You throw yourself to the side at the exact moment he shoots. The bullet tears pieces of bark from the tree where your head was a second before. You're in a standoff for several minutes, each waiting for the other to make a mistake. But then you realize the noise from the shots might have attracted walkers. Staying here too long could be fatal for both. Last chance, you shout. Leave now and everyone gets out alive. Can't do that, he responds. You killed our people. There have to be consequences. You hear something that makes your heart race. The distant sound of approaching moans. The walkers are coming, attracted by the noise of the fight. You heard that? You shout. I heard. More reason to finish this quick. He leaves cover in a desperate attempt to hit you before the walkers arrive. You're ready, and your bullet hits him center chest. He falls immediately. The wounded young man is trying to crawl away, but the blood and noise he's making will attract walkers directly to him. You consider helping him, but the moans are getting louder and closer. You run back to where Sarah is hidden. Sarah, we need to get out of here now. She emerges from the bushes, pale and shaking. What happened? I heard shots. I'll explain later. Walkers are coming. You start running through the forest again, leaving behind the bodies and the wounded young man who will probably be devoured in minutes. Behind you, you can hear human screams mixed with inhuman moans. The young man has found the walkers, or the walkers found him. You run until you can't anymore, then stop to catch your breath behind a rocky outcrop. Sarah is in even worse condition, her breathing shallow and rapid. I can't anymore, she says, sliding to the ground. You check her pulse, fast and weak. The fever is getting worse, and the physical effort of escape hasn't helped. Sarah, I need to know the truth. Were you bitten? She looks at you with tears in her eyes. It wasn't a bite, she whispers. What was it then? One of the men. He cut me with a dirty knife. Said if I didn't cooperate, he'd infect me on purpose. She lifts her shirt sleeve and shows a deep cut on her forearm, clearly infected. The skin around it is red and swollen, with dark streaks spreading toward her shoulder. Why didn't you tell me before? Because you would have left me behind. She's right. You probably would have. Infection in the apocalypse is almost always a death sentence, and traveling with someone doomed is suicide. But Now that you've spent 2 days with her, that you risked your life to save her, that you've seen her as a person and not just a burden, the decision is no longer so simple. Is there anything we can do? You ask. Antibiotics might help, but she shakes her head. What if we amputate the arm? It might be too late, and you're not a surgeon. You sit in silence for a moment, both contemplating the inevitable reality. How long? You ask. A day, maybe 2. Depends on how fast the infection spreads. The survivor camp might still have antibiotics, but it's almost a day's walk away. Sarah doesn't have the strength to make that journey, and carrying her would be impossible without attracting unwanted attention. There's one thing, she says softly. What? When the time comes, don't let me turn, please. You understand what she's asking? It's a favor people do for those they love in the apocalypse. One last kindness before humanity is lost forever. It won't come to that, you lie. We'll find antibiotics, but you both know it's not true. The sun is starting to set, painting the sky red through the trees. In a few hours, it will be completely dark, and traveling at night is almost suicide. You need to find a shelter for the night. You help Sarah stand, and you continue walking slowly through the forest. Each step is a struggle for her, but she keeps moving through pure willpower. After an hour, you find a small, natural cave at the base of a rocky cliff. It's just big enough for 2 people, but offers protection from the elements and is easily defensible. You help Sarah settle in the back of the cave and check the entrance. There are no signs of walkers or other humans in the area. We'll spend the night here, you say. Tomorrow, we'll continue toward the camp. Sarah smiles weakly. You both know she probably won't see another dawn, but she appreciates the gentle lie. As darkness settles, you sit at the cave entrance, rifle in hand, keeping watch. Sarah sleeps restlessly behind you, occasionally murmuring in her feverish dreams. The stars appear one by one in the dark sky. There's something comforting in their constancy. In the midst of all the chaos and death, they continue shining as they always have. You wonder if there are other survivors looking at the same stars, feeling the same cosmic loneliness. A soft sound behind you makes you turn. Sarah is awake, looking at you with fever-bright eyes. Thank you, she whispers. For what? For not leaving me alone. For giving me a few days of hope. You still have hope. We'll reach the camp tomorrow. She shakes her head slowly. It's okay. I know how this ends. Just thank you for allowing me to die as a person, not as a monster. You don't know what to say, so you just take her hand and hold it. Her skin is too hot, but she squeezes back with what little strength she still has. Tell me about your life. Before, she asks. Before all this. So you tell her. About your boring but safe job. About your small but cozy apartment. About plans you made that never came to fruition. Things that seemed important at the time, but now seem trivial in the face of mortality. Sarah listens with her eyes closed, occasionally smiling when you mention particular details. It's comforting for both of you to remember that you were people once, not just survivors. When you finish, she shares her own memories. She was an art student, dreamed of having her paintings in galleries someday. She had a boyfriend she planned to marry after graduation. She had parents who supported her in everything. All of that is gone now, of course. The boyfriend is probably dead. The parents are definitely dead. She saw them being devoured when it all began. Artistic dreams are irrelevant in a world where the only art that matters is the art of killing the dead and staying alive. But for a few precious minutes in the dark cave, you manage to pretend you're just 2 normal people, having a normal conversation about normal lives. Then Sarah goes quiet, and you think she's fallen asleep again. But a few minutes later, she speaks once more. When I die, she whispers, I want you to continue. Go to the camp, find other people. Don't give up just because I couldn't. You're not going to die. Promise me. You're silent for a long moment. I promise. She smiles and closes her eyes. This time, she really does fall asleep. You continue your vigil through the night, watching her breathing become increasingly shallow, listening to her temperature rise. Around 3 in the morning, she stops murmuring. Around 5, she stops moving completely. You check her pulse and find nothing. Sarah died peacefully, in her sleep, spared the horrible transformation that awaits most victims of the apocalypse. It's a small mercy in a world that offers few. You sit beside her body for a few minutes, processing the loss. In just 3 days, you became attached to her in a way you didn't expect. She represented hope, humanity, connection to something beyond mere survival. Now you're alone again. You take the knife you found in the abandoned house and position it over Sarah's temple. It's necessary to destroy the brain before she reanimates as a walker. It's the last kindness you can offer. The blade penetrates easily. Sarah felt nothing. You drag the body outside the cave and cover it with rocks, creating an improvised grave. It's not much, but it's more than most people get in the apocalypse. When the sun rises, you gather your few belongings and continue north toward the supposed survivor camp. You promised Sarah you would continue, and promises to the dead are the most sacred of all. The journey to the camp takes the entire day. You avoid main roads, keeping to forests and fields when possible. Several times, you need to hide from groups of walkers, and once from another group of humans who seem hostile. When you finally reach the location described in the rumors, you find only burned rubble and scattered bodies. The camp was attacked probably weeks ago. There are no survivors, no supplies, no hope. You sit in the rubble as the sun sets again, contemplating your options. You can keep looking for other camps, other groups of survivors. You can try to survive alone indefinitely, or you can just give up here and let the apocalypse take you too. But then you remember the promise you made to Sarah. She wanted you to continue, to find other people, not to give up. So you stand up, adjust your backpack, and start walking again. Where to? You don't know. But you'll keep moving, keep surviving, keep looking for some sign that humanity still exists somewhere. Because in the end, that's all anyone can do in the apocalypse. Keep walking until they can't anymore, and then walk a little more. The road stretches before you, dark and uncertain, but you follow it anyway, because the alternative is giving up, and you're not ready for that yet. Not yet. You walk for 3 days through unknown territory, surviving on rainwater collected in the improvised containers and some roots you hope aren't poisonous. Your strength is depleting rapidly. The constant vigilance, lack of adequate sleep, and malnutrition are taking their toll. On the morning of the 4th day, you see smoke rising on the horizon. Smoke can mean people, but it can also mean danger. In the apocalypse, humans can be more dangerous than the dead themselves, but you have no choice. Your water reserves are running out, and you need to find supplies soon, or die anyway. You approach the source of the smoke cautiously, keeping to dense vegetation to avoid detection. What you find is unexpected: a small fortified farm with high barbed wire fences and improvised watchtower. There are people moving within the perimeter. Living people, not walkers. You observe for hours, trying to determine if they're hostile or friendly. You see children playing in an inner courtyard, women working in a garden, men patrolling the perimeter. It seems legitimate, but you've learned to be skeptical about appearances. Then you see something that makes your blood freeze. 2 men dragging a bound woman through the courtyard. While she screams and struggles, they throw her into a structure that appears to be an improvised prison. Other bound figures are visible through the bars. It's not a survivor refuge. It's a slave camp. You're about to turn away when you hear a familiar voice shouting from the prison. It can't be, but it is. It's Marcus's voice, the man who traveled with you for 5 days before stealing your supplies and disappearing. Your first instinct is to leave. Marcus betrayed you, stole your food and water when you needed it most. He deserves whatever fate he's found here. But then you remember the promise you made to Sarah to remain human, not to give up compassion completely. You move around the perimeter, looking for a weak point in the defenses. The farm is well fortified against walkers, but not against determined humans. There's a section of fence in the back where vegetation has grown tall enough to offer cover. At night, you approach the fence. The barbed wire cuts your hands as you create a small opening, but you ignore the pain. You manage to squeeze through the hole and find yourself inside the perimeter. The prison is on the other side of the courtyard. guarded by 2 armed men who converse quietly and occasionally drink from a shared bottle. You'll need to neutralize them silently. You move through the shadows, taking advantage of cover provided by various farm buildings. The first guard has his back to you, focused on conversation with his partner. You approach from behind and strangle him with your arm, cutting off blood flow to the brain. He passes out in seconds. The second guard turns when he hears a soft noise, but you're already moving. A hard blow to the temple with your axe handle leaves him unconscious. You drag both bodies into the shadows and take the prison keys. Marcus, you whisper through the bars. Several figures move in the darkness of the cell. Who is it? A voice responds. Is that you, Marcus? The teacher looking for his daughter? Yes. Who wants to know? Someone you robbed a few weeks ago. Silence. Listen, Marcus finally says. I can explain that. I was desperate. Later, you interrupt him, opening the cell. We need to get out of here now. There are 5 people in the prison. Marcus, 2 women, an elderly man, and a teenager. All look malnourished and bruised. Who are you? You ask the other people. Survivors they captured. One of the women responds. They make us work the fields during the day and lock us up at night. For how long? I've been here 2 months, the elderly man says. There's an exit at the back of the farm. You explain quickly. I'll show the way, but we need to move silently. You guide the group through the shadows, retracing your path to the fence. But when you get there, you discover the opening you made has been discovered and repaired. Worse still, there are now 3 guards patrolling the area. Shit, you mutter. Now what? Marcus whispers. You study the situation. The main fence is too well lit and guarded, but there's a barn nearby that might offer enough height to climb over the fence if you can reach it. Follow me, you whisper. You move toward the barn, but the teenager trips over an empty can. The noise echoes through the quiet courtyard. What was that? One of the guards shouts. Flashlights begin sweeping the area. In seconds, you'll be discovered. Run, you shout, abandoning any attempt at silence. The group runs toward the barn, while alert shouts echo through the farm. You manage to reach the structure before the guards, but now the entire farm is awake and mobilizing. Up, you order, pointing to a ladder leading to the barn loft. The group climbs quickly. From the loft, there's a window that opens directly over the outer fence. It's about a 4-meter drop, but preferable to being recaptured. I'll go first, you say, preparing to jump. Wait, Marcus says. Why are you doing this after what I did to you? Because someone once told me not to give up being human, you respond, and jump. You land heavily on the other side of the fence, feeling sharp pain in your left ankle. But nothing seems broken. One by one, the other people jump, and you help them up. Behind you, the farm is in total chaos. Dogs begin barking. Vehicles are being started. Angry voices shout orders. They'll chase us, the younger woman says, clearly terrified. Not if we stay together, you respond. We need to split up. Meet at the main road 10 kilometers north in 3 days. What if some of us don't make it? The teenager asks. Then those who do continue without the others. It's a brutal decision, but necessary. A large group moves slowly and makes too much noise. Smaller groups have better chances of avoiding both pursuers and walkers. You separate into 3 groups. You with Marcus, the 2 women together, and the elderly man with the teenager. Each group goes in a different direction, planning to reunite at the agreed point. You and Marcus move through the forest, tense, silent. The tension isn't just from the pursuit. There are unresolved issues between you two. After an hour of walking, you stop to rest in a small clearing. You want an explanation, Marcus says. I don't need an explanation. I know exactly why you did it. No, you don't. You look him in the eyes for the first time since you freed him. Then tell me. Marcus takes a deep breath. My daughter. I lied about looking for her. She died on the first day. I saw her being devoured by our own neighbor. You remain silent, letting him continue. But I couldn't accept it. I spent weeks looking for her, even knowing she was dead. When I found you, you gave me hope again. But then I realized I was just delaying the inevitable. So you decided to rob me. It wasn't planned. The morning I fled, I woke up and looked at you sleeping so peacefully, and I felt so envious. You still had hope, still had the will to live. I just felt empty. Marcus wipes his eyes with the back of his hand. I thought if I took your supplies, you'd be forced to stop caring too, like me. It was selfish and cruel, and I knew it even as I did it. And then I completely lost myself. I stopped caring about everything. That's how they captured me. I didn't even try to escape when they found me. You process this information. The betrayal still hurts, but at least now you understand the motivations. And now? You ask. Now I don't know. You saved me even after what I did. Why? Because a very brave person once told me that if you give up being human, then the dead have already won. Marcus is silent for a long moment. She was right, he finally says. Yes, she was. You resume walking. The conversation has created a tenuous understanding between you, but full trust will take time to rebuild. On the second day, you find signs that you're being pursued. Boot prints, still warm cigarette butts, the distant sound of engines. The farmers haven't given up the search. They're persistent, Marcus observes. They probably lost valuable slaves. They'll want everyone back. You increase the pace, but know you can't run indefinitely. Eventually, you'll have to face the pursuers or find a way to lose them permanently. The opportunity comes in the form of a walker horde. You discover feeding on vehicle wreckage on a road. There are at least 30 of them, maybe more. We can use this, you say. How? Let's lead our pursuers straight to them. It's a dangerous plan that requires perfect timing. You position yourselves on the other side of the horde, create enough noise to attract attention, and then wait for the farmers to appear. They don't take long. 3 vehicles appear on the road, full of armed men. They see you on the other side of the horde and start shooting, completely ignoring the walkers. The shots immediately attract the attention of the dead. The entire horde turns toward the noise and begins moving toward the vehicles. The farmers realize the danger too late. They try to reverse, but the vehicles collide with each other in the confusion. In minutes, the walkers are upon them. You use the chaos to escape, knowing the pursuit is definitely over. On the third day, you arrive at the meeting point on the main road. The 2 women are already there, but there's no sign of the elderly man and teenager. You wait until the end of the day, but they don't appear. We need to assume they're not coming, one of the women says sadly. They might just be delayed, Marcus suggests, or they might be dead. You respond pragmatically. Either way, we can't wait any longer. The group now consists of 4 people. You, Marcus, and 2 women named Elena and Rosa. Elena is a nurse who was working at a hospital when everything began. Rosa was a cook at a restaurant and has valuable knowledge about finding and preparing food. Where to now? Elena asks. North, you respond. Always north. There are rumors of a safe zone near the Tennessee border. Rumors, Rosa repeats skeptically. Like the rumor of the survivor camp you went to check. Do you have a better suggestion? She shakes her head. Then we follow the rumors. It's better than standing still. The group begins walking again. Having other people completely changes the dynamic. There's more safety in numbers, but also more complications. Decisions have to be democratic. Resources have to be shared. And different personalities create tension. Elena is too optimistic for the circumstances, always trying to see the bright side of situations. Rosa is the opposite, cynical and pragmatic to the extreme. Marcus is somewhere in the middle, still struggling with guilt and depression, and you find yourself in the role of unofficial leader, making decisions that affect everyone's life in the first week. Together, you face several challenges. A storm forces you to shelter in an abandoned church for 2 days. Rosa gets sick with what appears to be food poisoning. Marcus breaks his ankle in a fall and needs to be carried for hours. But there are also moments of humanity you haven't experienced in months. Elena tells funny stories from her days as a nurse. Rosa teaches the group how to identify edible plants. Marcus reveals he played guitar and hums songs that help pass the time. Slowly, you begin to function as a cohesive unit rather than just desperate individuals who happen to be together. This almost costs everyone's life. You're crossing a small town when you're ambushed by another group of survivors. Unlike the farmers, these are true bandits, dirty, violent, and completely unscrupulous. "Drop your weapons," the leader shouts. He's a large man with arms covered in tattoos and half his teeth missing. You have no choice but to obey. There are 8 of them, against 4 of you, and they have you surrounded. What do you want? You ask. Everything, the leader responds, smiling. Food, water, weapons, and the women come with us too. No, you say automatically. The leader laughs. This isn't a negotiation, friend. This is how things work now. One of the bandits approaches Elena, clearly with bad intentions. She backs away, terror evident in her eyes. Something inside you breaks. Maybe it's the memory of Sarah. Maybe it's just accumulated anger from weeks of loss and suffering. But you refuse to passively watch while innocent people are victimized again. You throw yourself at the nearest bandit, snatching his pistol before he can react. Your first shot hits the man approaching Elena. Your second misses, but causes enough confusion for Marcus to act. The former teacher, whom you've never seen fight before, grabs a rock and hits one of the bandits in the head with surprising force. The man falls, blood flowing from a scalp wound. Elena and Rosa run for cover, while you and Marcus fight desperately against impossible odds. You manage to take down 2 more bandits, but there are too many of them. A bullet whizzes past your ear. Another hits the ground at your feet. You're almost out of ammunition and surrounded. Then you hear something that makes your heart sink. Moans. Many moan. The gunfire has attracted walkers. Many walkers. Shit! The bandit leader shouts, realizing the rapidly changing situation. A horde of at least 50 dead emerges from the side streets, attracted by the noise. Now, it's no longer bandits against survivors. It's everyone against the dead. Truce! You shout. Everyone against them first. The leader hesitates for only a second before agreeing. Survival trumps greed when walkers are involved. The 2 groups temporarily unite, forming a defensive circle. As the dead approach from all directions, you find yourself fighting side by side with men who were trying to kill you minutes before. It's a brutal and chaotic battle. The sound of skulls cracking mixes with human screams and inhuman moans. Blood, both red and black, spreads through the streets. Elena uses a metal rod to keep walkers at distance, while Rosa attacks them with a hatchet she found. Marcus is using an iron bar as a club, his former academic life completely forgotten in the necessary violence. You're back to the axe, your most reliable strike. Each movement is precise. Each hit is fatal. But there are too many of them, and you're quickly getting surrounded. We need to get out of here, you shout over the chaos. Where to? The bandit leader responds, taking down a walker with a shotgun. You see a hardware store with the door still intact. There, barricades. The group fights toward the store, leaving behind a trail of walker bodies. You manage to reach the door and lock yourselves inside moments before the horde reaches you. Inside, there are some useful tools and, more importantly, multiple exits, but the front windows show dozens of walkers pressing against the glass. We'll be trapped here for hours, one of the bandits complains. Better than being dead, Elena responds. The temporary truce creates a strange atmosphere. Deadly enemies now share the same small space, united only by the common threat outside. The bandit leader, who introduces himself as Tank, reveals that his group was just trying to survive, like you. Their tactics are brutal, but effective in a brutal world. You're too nice, he observes. You'll die because of it. Maybe, you respond. But we'll die as people, not as animals. Tank laughs, but it's not a cruel sound. It's almost admiring. I respect that. Stupid, but respectable. As the hours pass and the walkers slowly disperse, the 2 factions begin to know each other better. You discover Tank was an army sergeant before the apocalypse. His methods are violent because he learned that hesitation means death. How many good people have you met who died because they were too good? He asks. The question hits deep. Sarah died because she was too good to let others suffer. The elderly man and teenager probably died because they were too weak to keep up. Many, you admit. And how many bad people have you met who are still alive? Also many. Exactly. This world rewards cruelty and punishes kindness. That's how things are now. That doesn't mean we have to accept it, Elena interrupts. If everyone turns into animals, then the dead really have one. It's an echo of what Sarah said, and for a moment you feel a pang of pain at her loss. Tank considers Elena's words. Maybe, he finally says, but kindness without strength is just weakness in disguise. The conversation is interrupted by the sound of breaking glass. The walkers have found a way in through the back of the store. Time to go, you announce. The two groups work together to create an exit through the front door. Now that most of the walkers have moved to the back, it's a coordinated maneuver that works perfectly. Once outside, Tank extends his hand to you. It was a pleasure fighting by your side, he says, but now we're back to being enemies. It doesn't have to be this way. Marcus surprises everyone by saying, "What do you mean?" Tank asks. "Join us, or let us join you. We're stronger together." Tank considers this. "My people won't accept weak travelers, and you won't accept our methods. Maybe we can find a middle ground," you suggest. "How?" "You teach us to be tougher. We teach you to be more human." Tank laughs again, but this time there's a touch of possibility in the laugh. "Interesting, very interesting." He turns to his men and has a whispered conversation with them. After a few minutes, he returns. "We have a deal. 2-week trial run. If it works, we continue together. If it doesn't work, we separate without violence." "Agreed," you say, extending your hand. Tank shakes your hand with a force that almost breaks your bone. "Welcome to the most dysfunctional group in the apocalypse," he smiles. The new combined group of 8 people presents unique challenge. Tank's methods include stealing from other survivors, taking supplies by force, and eliminating anyone seen as a threat. His men, Jake, Diesel, and Crow, are loyal to him, but distrustful of anyone who shows weakness. On the other hand, Elena insists on helping anyone injured they find, even if it means using precious resources. Rosa wants to share food with starving family. Marcus argues that maintaining moral standards is what separates them from the dead. You find yourself constantly mediating between the two extremes, trying to find solutions that keep the group together without completely compromising either side's principles. The first major test comes when you encounter a family of 5, parents with 3 small children, hiding in a broken car. They haven't had food in days and are clearly desperate. "We pass by," Tank orders. "Not our problem. They're children," Elena protests. "We can't let them die." "We can, and we will," Jake responds. "Saving them means fewer resources for us. The group is about to split when you have an idea. What if they can pay us for help?" "With what?" Tank asks. "They clearly have nothing. Information. They've traveled through this area. They know where to find supplies, where to avoid danger." You approach the family and explain the situation. The father, a middle-aged man named David, immediately agrees to share everything he knows in exchange for food and temporary protection. The information he provides is valuable. The location of an abandoned hospital with medical supplies, an area where bandits are active, and the safest route through the next 2 cities. Information is a resource like any other, you explain to Tank. Sometimes it's worth more than food or ammunition. Tank is impressed despite himself. Smart, very smart. The family travels with the group for 3 days, sharing information and even helping with simple tasks like collecting firewood and water. When they finally part ways, it's amicably, with both sides benefiting from the encounter. "Maybe you guys have something here," Jake admits reluctantly. "It's about finding value where others see only problems," you explain. As the weeks pass, the hybrid group begins to develop a unique dynamic. Tank teaches Elena and Rosa basic combat techniques. Elena teaches Tank's men basic medical care. Marcus, surprisingly, reveals a talent for strategy and planning. You become the unofficial leader, the person everyone turns to when difficult decisions need to be made. It's a heavy responsibility, but it's also comforting to know you're not alone in the apocalypse. The group finds temporary refuge in an old fire station. It's easily defensible, has useful supplies, and is located in an area with relatively few walkers. "We can stay here for a few weeks," Tank suggests. "Rest, replan, maybe make some improvements." It's tempting. After weeks on the road, the idea of a safe place to sleep and regular food is almost irresistible, but you've learned to be cautious about settling anywhere. 2 weeks maximum, you agree. After that, we keep moving. Why? Rosa asks. This place is good. Good places attract bad people, you explain. The longer we stay, the greater the chance of being discovered by hostile groups. Your concern proves prophetic. On the 10th night, you're attacked by a rogue military group that wants to take the station for themselves. The battle is intense and prolonged. The attackers have better equipment and training, but you know the building's layout and can use that to your advantage. Elena is wounded in the arm by grenade shrapnel. Marcus takes a grazing shot to the leg, but the group works together with an efficiency that would have been impossible weeks ago. Tank and his men provide heavy firepower while you coordinate defensive tactics. Elena continues treating the wounded even while injured. Rosa uses her knowledge of the kitchen facilities to create improvised traps. When the smoke clears, the attackers are dead or have fled, but the station is too damaged to continue being a safe refuge. Time to go, you announce, packing the few remaining supplies. Where to now? Diesel asks. It's the first time he's addressed you directly, a sign of respect earned through combat. East, you decide. There are rumors of a still active military installation in North Carolina. More rumors? Rosa sighs. Rumors are all we have, you respond. But these come from multiple sources. There might be something real there. The group moves out the next morning, leaving behind another temporary refuge. But this time, you don't feel the same sadness you felt before. You have people you trust, people who trust you. In the apocalypse, that's more valuable than any physical place. The journey to North Carolina takes several weeks and tests the group in new ways. They cross territories controlled by warlords, navigate through entire cities taken over by hordes, and survive a hailstorm that kills several walkers, but almost kills them too. Each challenge makes them stronger as a unit. Tank learns to value human life beyond simple utility. Elena learns that sometimes violence is necessary to protect the innocent. Marcus overcomes his depression and guilt, finding purpose in helping the group. And you learn that leadership in the apocalypse isn't about having all the answers, but about making difficult decisions and living with the consequences. When they finally sight the high walls and communication towers of the military installation, you know you've reached something important. But whether it's salvation or just another kind of prison, you'll only discover when you pass through the gates. The high walls of the military installation rise before you like a promise of salvation or a sentence of perpetual imprisonment. Barbed wire snakes along the top of the concrete barriers, and watchtowers dot the perimeter like vigilant eyes that never blink. The sound of generators echoes through the gray morning, a luxury almost forgotten in the post-apocalyptic world. You approach slowly, hands visible and weapons lowered. Through the binoculars Tank carries, you can see soldiers in the towers, living people, uniformed, organized. You haven't seen this much structure in one place for months. Halt! An amplified voice echoes through the loudspeakers. Identify yourselves and state your intentions. You step forward, hands raised. We're survivors. 8 people seeking safe refuge. There's a long pause. You can see movement in the towers, figures communicating through radios. Approach slowly, keep weapons on the ground, and hands visible. The group obeys, leaving their weapons in a pile 50 meters from the main gate. It's a huge risk. If these soldiers are hostile, you'll be completely defenseless, but you've come too far to turn back now. The heavy metal gate opens with a mechanical creak that echoes like a metallic groan through your ears. 6 soldiers emerge, rifles pointed, but not threatening. They look well-fed, clean, professional, a stark contrast to the survivor groups you've encountered in recent weeks. I'm Colonel Harrison, the leader introduces himself. He's a tall, middle-aged man with graying haircut, military style, and eyes that have seen too much. This is Fort Griffin Military Base. Before we allow entry, we need some information. Of course, you respond. What do you need to know? First, has anyone been bitten or scratched by infected in the Last 14 days? Everyone shakes their heads. It's true. You've been too careful to allow that kind of exposure. Second, do you have medical supplies, food, or ammunition to contribute to the community? Tank responds, some basic medical supplies, limited ammunition for rifles and pistols, and knowledge about safe travel routes. Third, Harrison continues, are you willing to follow military orders, contribute to community work, and defend this installation if necessary? Yes, you respond without hesitation. After months on the road, the promise of safety and structure is worth almost any sacrifice. Harrison studies each face for a moment, as if he could read intentions through expressions. Very well, enter, but know that you're under constant observation for the first 30 days. Any suspicious behavior or rule violations will result in immediate expulsion. In the apocalypse, second chances are a luxury we can't afford. The gate closes behind you with a final sound that is simultaneously comforting and claustrophobic. You're safe, but also trapped. The base is impressive. Well-maintained concrete buildings, functioning power system, running water, luxuries you'd forgotten existed. Organized gardens grow between the buildings, guarded by smaller fences against wild animals. There are even children playing in a small park in the center of the installation. Current population, 243 people. Harrison explains as he guides you through the base. 62 active military. The rest are civilians we found, or who arrived like you. We have doctors, engineers, teachers, farmers. We try to maintain a functional society here. How do you manage to keep this running? Elena asks, clearly impressed with the medical structure they pass. Discipline, planning, and sacrifice. Harrison responds, everyone works, everyone contributes. There's no room for laziness or selfishness. Group survival always comes before individual comfort. You're taken to a temporary housing building, simple but clean rooms, with real beds, functioning bathrooms, and even hot water. After months sleeping on forest floors and in abandoned houses, it feels like imperial luxury. Rest today, Harrison instructs. Tomorrow, you begin integration and work assignments. Someone will come for you at 6 in the morning. When Harrison leaves, the group gathers in the hallway between rooms. It's too good to be true, Rosa whispers. Places like this always have a hidden price. I agree, Tank adds. Military means rigid hierarchy. We might be trading one prison for another, but at least it's a prison with regular food and beds, Marcus observes. Pragmatically, let's give it a chance, you decide, but we stay alert. If things go bad, we leave together. The group agrees silently. After months learning to trust each other, you've formed bonds that won't be easily broken. The first week at the base reveals both the advantages and disadvantages of organized military life. Meals are regular and nutritious, a mix of food grown on the base and supplies recovered from organized expeditions. There's a functioning health system, with Elena quickly integrated into the medical team due to her experience as a nurse. But there are also rigid rules, inflexible schedules, and a hierarchy that doesn't tolerate questioning. Tank, accustomed to being a leader, struggles to accept orders from superiors. He considers less experienced in the apocalypse. His men, Jake, Diesel, and Crow, are assigned to external patrols. Work they do well, but that keeps them frequently away from the base. You're assigned to the strategic planning team, working directly with base officers to plan supply expeditions and evacuation routes. It's important work, but it also means you're constantly under scrutiny from military leaders. Marcus finds his place in the base's small school, teaching the survivor children. It's work he loves, but that also makes him emotionally vulnerable. Each child reminds him of the losses everyone has suffered. Rosa works in the kitchens, where her knowledge about food preparation and identification of edible plants is highly valued. She adapts recipes to work with the limited supplies available, creating meals that are both nutritious and comforting. During the second week, you discover more about how the base really functions. There are regular expeditions to nearby cities, searching for supplies, fuel, and survivors. But there are also cleanup expeditions, missions to eliminate large groups of walkers that might threaten the base's safety. Tomorrow you're going on your first field expedition, Major Santos informs during a planning meeting. City 40 kilometers south. Reports indicate a hospital with intact medical supplies, but also significant infected population. How many men? You ask. 12. You. 4 of your civilian companions and 7 military. 2-day mission. That night, you meet with your group to discuss the mission. It's a test, Tank states categorically. They want to see how we behave under pressure, if we're loyal to the base, or if we have our own agenda. Or, Elena suggests, they simply need people experienced in survival for a dangerous mission. Could be both, you observe. Either way, we have to prove our worth, but it's also an opportunity to see how the base operates in the outside world. The expedition leaves before dawn. 2 modified military vehicles with welded metal plates and reinforced tires. The team includes you, Tank, Jake, Elena, and Diesel, along with 7 soldiers led by Sergeant Williams. Williams is a 40-year-old veteran with scars that tell stories he prefers not to share. He knows base protocol, but also respects the survival experience you bring. Primary objective, medical supplies from Millbrook Regional Hospital, Williams explains during the trip. Secondary objective, fuel from nearby gas station. Tertiary objective, survivor sweep. Any sign of hostile groups or large hordes, we abort immediately. The town of Millbrook is an urban cemetery. Abandoned cars block the streets like metallic skeletons. Broken windows look like empty eyes from buildings that once pulsed with life. The silence is oppressive. Not even birds sing here. Movement, 2 o'clock. Jake reports through the radio. You follow his gaze and see 3 walkers wandering among destroyed cars. They haven't noticed the vehicles yet, but it's a matter of time. Avoid, if possible, Williams decides. Engine noise will attract more. The vehicles navigate slowly through the streets, avoiding debris and small groups of walkers. It's tense work that requires constant concentration. One mistake, one noise too loud, and they could find themselves surrounded by hundreds of the dead. The hospital appears after 20 minutes of careful navigation. It's a 6-story building with the main entrance barricaded with cars and furniture. There's no visible movement, but that could mean either safety or a deadly trap full of trapped walkers. Rear entrance, Williams decides. 2 men stay with the vehicles, engine running, ready for quick escape. Rest of the team splits into 2 groups. One goes to ground floor pharmacy, other to surgical supplies on 3rd floor. What if we encounter resistance? You ask. Silent combat, whenever possible. Shots only, as last resort. The rear entrance is unlocked, the door ominously ajar. Williams tests carefully, peering through the opening. Total darkness. He signals for the group to approach. The hospital interior is a sensory nightmare. The smell of decomposition, mixed with medical chemicals, creates a stench that makes eyes water. Medical papers are scattered on the floor, mixed with dark stains that could be blood. Expensive medical equipment is scattered and broken, as if a desperate fight had happened here. Williams divides the group as planned. You go with Elena and 3 soldiers to the 3rd floor, while Tank stays with the rest to sweep the pharmacy. The hospital stairway creaks dangerously with each step. You climb slowly, testing each step before putting full weight. On the 2nd floor, you hear the first moan. It's low, almost inaudible, but unmistakable. There are walkers in the building. Elena points to a door ajar at the end of the corridor. Vague movement is visible through the opening, something moving in the dark. Williams signals for everyone to stop. He approaches the door silently, peers through the opening, then returns. 4 walkers, he whispers, trapped in what looks like a waiting room. We can go around. They continue climbing. The 3rd floor is where the surgical supplies are. Sterilized instruments, anesthetics, high-quality antibiotics. For an isolated community, these supplies could mean the difference between life and death for the seriously injured. The surgical wing is surprisingly intact. The doors are closed and locked, which probably kept walkers away. Williams uses a small crowbar to force the first door. Inside, it's like a preserved medical museum. Surgical instruments gleam on organized trays. Supply cabinets are full of bandages, sutures, and medications. It's a treasure in the post-apocalyptic world. Jackpot, Elena whispers, her eyes shining with medical possibilities. The team works quickly and silently, packing supplies into military backpacks. They prioritize antibiotics, painkillers, and basic surgical instruments, items that are impossible to replace without modern medical infrastructure. Then you hear gunshots downstairs. Williams speaks urgently into the radio. Tank, report. The response comes choppy. Surrounded in pharmacy. At least 12. Walkers. Need backup. Shit, Williams mutters. You two, finish here. We're going to help downstairs. You and Elena continue packing supplies, while Williams and 2 soldiers run downstairs. The gunshots are becoming more frequent and more desperate. We need to go, Elena says, closing her full backpack. 2 more minutes, you respond, grabbing a last batch of antibiotics. These supplies could save dozens of lives. Then you hear something that makes your blood freeze. The sound of glass breaking en masse, followed by multiplied moans. Many moan. Williams comes back on the radio. All groups, immediate evacuation. The pharmacy had a walker trapped behind the glass counter. The shots called a horde from the street. You and Elena run to the stairs, heavy backpacks hitting your backs. Downstairs, chaos has taken over. You can hear human screams mixed with inhuman moans and the constant sound of gunshots. On the 2nd floor, you encounter a problem. The corridor is full of walkers that were attracted by the noise. At least 15 of them block the path to the main staircase. Emergency exit. Elena points to a door at the end of the opposite corridor. You run in the opposite direction, but the walkers detect you. The corridor fills with amplified moans, echoing off the tile walls. The emergency staircase is locked from the inside, an improvised barricade made with medical furniture. Someone tried to protect themselves here and failed. There are bones scattered on the floor and old bloodstains on the walls. We can jump from the window, Elena suggests, looking through the opening. It's only 2 floors. Onto concrete, you observe, and possibly right into a horde. The moans are getting closer. You have minutes, maybe less. You make a quick decision. Using a hospital chair as a battering ram, you break the emergency staircase barricade. Furniture falls down the stairs with a metallic crash that resonates throughout the entire building. So much for silence now, you mutter, and start running down. On the ground floor, the situation is chaotic. Tank and his group are barricaded behind a reception counter, shooting at walkers approaching from multiple directions. The vehicles are 50 meters from the entrance, but the path is blocked by at least 30 dead. Williams sees you from the emergency staircase and shouts, "We need to create a distraction. Split the horde." You look around and see a medical supply cart full of flammable materials. Elena, do you have a lighter? Yes, but trust me. You push the cart to the opposite corridor. Pour medical alcohol over the materials and light it on fire. The flames spread quickly, creating a barrier of light and heat that attracts several walkers. Now, you shout. The group makes a coordinated run for the vehicles. Tank and his men provide covering fire while you load the medical supplies. It's a desperate retreat through a corridor of death with walkers approaching from all sides. Diesel stumbles and falls 10 meters from the vehicles. A walker throws itself on him before anyone can react. You hear his scream being cut short abruptly. There's no time for mourning. The group reaches the vehicles and speeds away at high speed, leaving Diesel and several walkers behind in a cloud of dust and exhaust. The trip back to the base is silent. No one talks about Diesel, but everyone feels the weight of the loss. In the apocalypse, the death of companions isn't shocking. It's inevitable, but that doesn't make it easier. He knew the risks, Tank finally says, more to himself than to others. We all know, Williams responds. That's why missions like this are voluntary. But you know it's not completely true. At the base, refusing dangerous missions means eventually being expelled. In the apocalypse, there are no truly free choices, only different degrees of necessary coercion. When they arrive at the base, Harrison receives them personally. Report, he orders. Williams explains the mission, the losses, and the recovered supplies. Harrison listens without expression, making occasional notes. The medical supplies justify the losses, he finally concludes. Good strategic withdrawal decision. Diesel will be appropriately remembered. That's all. There's no ceremony, no prolonged mourning. In the military world of the apocalypse, death is processed quickly and life goes on. That night, the group meets in silence in Tank's room. Crow is clearly shaken by Diesel's loss. They had fought together for months before arriving at the base. Does this change anything? Rosa asks. It changes everything, Tank responds. Now we know we're not just residents here. We're expendable soldiers. But the supplies we brought will save lives, Elena argues. It wasn't in vain. Maybe, you say. But we need to be prepared for the possibility that this place isn't the permanent refuge we hoped for. In the following weeks, the group integrates more deeply into base life, but also maintains discreet contacts with other civilians who arrived recently. There's an informal network of information and mutual support among non-military personnel. Through this network, you discover disturbing things. The base has regular expeditions, not just for supplies, but also for forced recruitment, capturing lone survivors and giving them the choice between joining the base or being left to die. There are also rumors that other military refugees fell not from walker attacks, but from internal revolts. Apparently, rigid military life eventually creates tensions that explode into violence. We're in a pressure cooker, Marcus observes, during one of their discreet meetings. The question isn't if it will explode, but when. 3 months after arriving at the base, the situation reaches a breaking point. During a recruitment expedition, some soldiers return with a group of families who clearly don't want to be there. Among them is an 8-year-old girl who won't stop crying for her mother, who the soldiers left for the dead. Elena is revolted and confronts Harrison directly. You killed her mother? She was infected. Harrison responds coldly. Necessary choice. She was 8 years old. You could have tried. Doctor, you're questioning military judgment. That's insubordination. Tension at the base increases dramatically. Civilians begin to openly question military tactics. Some soldiers also show discomfort with the more brutal orders. Then the incident happens that changes everything. During a routine expedition, a group of survivors is found in an abandoned school. Among them are a wounded man, his pregnant wife, and 3 small children. The man has an infection, but it's not a walker bite. It's an infected bullet wound. Harrison orders the man to be executed as a contamination writ. When the wife protests, he orders her to be sedated to protect the pregnancy. That's when Elena refuses to obey. I won't sedate a pregnant woman against her will so you can murder her husband, she declares publicly. Dr. Kane, you're under arrest for insubordination, Harrison announces. It's the moment you knew would eventually come. You look at Tank, who nods slightly. Rosa and Marcus also understand. Crow discreetly positions his hand on his weapon. Colonel, you say calmly, I think there's a misunderstanding here. There's no misunderstanding. Military discipline must be maintained. I understand, but we're civilians, not soldiers. We never took a military oath. Harrison studies you with dangerous eyes. Everyone here is under military authority, civilian or not. Then I think it's time for us to leave. The silence that follows is tense, like a stretched wire about to break. Soldiers position hands on weapons. Civilians instinctively back away. Children cry. Tank steps beside you. I agree. Time to leave. Marcus and Rosa do the same. Crow moves to stand behind Tank. Elena, still with her hand on the pregnant woman's arm, looks Harrison in the eyes. I'm going with them. Harrison considers his option. He has more soldiers, better equipment, control of the base, but he also knows that violence here could permanently divide his force. Some soldiers clearly sympathize with the civilians. Very well, he finally says. You have 1 hour to collect personal possessions and leave. Any attempt to take base property will result in permanent detention. An hour later, the group is once again outside the base walls, looking at the road that stretches to the horizon. They have basic clothes, some personal weapons, and supplies for a few days. It's less than they had when they arrived. But they have something more, confirmation that their humanity is worth more than security, achieved through brutality. Where to now? Rosa asks. You look at the setting sun, painting the sky red through the trees. West, you decide. There are rumors of cooperative communities in the West Virginia mountains. More rumors. Marcus sighs, but he's smiling. Rumors are all we have, you respond, echoing your own words from months ago. But this time, we'll check together. The group begins walking down the empty road. Behind them, the base walls gradually disappear in the distance. Ahead, uncertainty awaits them, as always, but they'll face it together. In the apocalypse, that's all anyone can ask for, and maybe, just maybe, it's enough. 3 weeks after leaving the military base, you face the cruel reality that everyone feared but no one verbalized. Rosa is dying. The cough that started as a simple cold has evolved into something more sinister. She coughs up blood in the morning, and her strength visibly diminishes each day. Elena does what she can. With the few medical supplies they manage to take from the base, but without adequate antibiotics or diagnostic equipment, she's essentially watching a friend waste away. Pneumonia, Elena whispers to you during a break, while Rosa sleeps leaning against a tree. Without proper treatment, she has days, maybe a week. You are camped in a small clearing on the slopes of the West Virginia mountains. The air here is cleaner than in the dead cities, but also colder. The nights are getting brutal, and you don't have adequate equipment for the approaching winter. Marcus has developed a silent depression since Rosa worsened. He blames himself for not finding a safe community sooner, as if geography and fate were his personal responsibility. Tank and Crow maintain constant vigilance, but even they are beginning to show signs of despair. It's during the 4th night that everything changes. You're awakened by the sound of human voices echoing through the forest. They're not the cries of despair you've become accustomed to hearing, nor the aggressive military commands from the base. They're normal conversations, almost homey. Tank moves silently to investigate, returning 15 minutes later with an expression you haven't seen in months. Genuine hope. There's a community 2 kilometers from here, he whispers. Real families, children playing, organized garden. How many people, you ask? Hard to tell in the dark, but at least 50, maybe more. Defenses? Low walls, mainly against wild animals. Some observation towers, but nothing militarized. It seems peaceful. Elena looks at Rosa, who sleeps restlessly, her breathing harsh and irregular. She needs real medical care. Soon. Could be a trap, Marcus warns, but his voice lacks usual conviction. Everything could be a trap, you respond, but Rosa will die if we don't try. The next morning, you approach the community openly, hands visible and weapons lowered. It's a desperate gamble, but desperation has been your constant companion for so long that it feels almost familiar. What you find defies everything you've learned about survival in the apocalypse. The community is called Haven Valley, and it's exactly what the name suggests. A refuge built in a natural valley, protected by mountains on 3 sides. The community has developed a completely different approach to surviving in the post-apocalyptic world. Instead of high walls and watchtowers, they have community gardens and craft workshops. Instead of armed patrols, they have work groups that maintain infrastructure. Instead of rigid military hierarchy, they have a democratic council that makes decisions by consensus. How do you survive? You ask Margaret Chen, a 60-year-old woman who serves as one of the community's elected leaders. Cooperation, she responds simply, and geographical luck. She explains that the isolated location protected them from the first waves of infection. When walkers arrived, the community was already organized and prepared. They developed techniques to silently eliminate small groups of infected and created early warning systems for larger hordes. But most importantly, Margaret continues, we decided from the beginning that we wouldn't let the apocalypse turn us into monsters. Many communities survive by becoming brutal. We survive by maintaining our humanity. Rosa is immediately taken to what they call the medical center, actually a converted house with medical equipment recovered from abandoned hospitals. To Elena's surprise, they have a real doctor, Dr. James Porter, who was visiting the area when the apocalypse began and decided to stay. Bacterial pneumonia, he confirms after examining Rosa, curable with the right antibiotic, which fortunately we have. It's the first good news you've received in weeks. While Rosa recovers, you explore Haven Valley and meet its inhabitants. They're retired teachers, farmers, engineers, artists, ordinary people who came together to create something extraordinary under impossible circumstances. There's a school where children of various ages learn not just academic subjects, but also practical survival skills. There are workshops where craftsmen create tools, clothes, and even musical instruments. There's a community library where books saved from dead cities are carefully preserved. It's surreal, Marcus comments while watching. Children play in a small but well-maintained park, as if the apocalypse never happened here. Oh, it happened, Margaret responds, overhearing the comment. We lost many people in the beginning. Hunger, disease, walker attacks. But we learned that survival isn't just about not dying. It's about keeping alive the reason why it's worth living. Elena quickly integrates into the medical team, her experience being valued but not exploited. Tank and Crow find purpose in the community's security team, which operates more like forest rangers than soldiers. Marcus is invited to teach at the school, work that visibly transforms him. And you find yourself on the planning council, helping the community prepare for future challenges. But for the first time in months, these challenges seem manageable instead of insurmountable. Rosa recovers completely in 2 weeks. The cough disappears, her color returns, and she goes back to cooking, this time for an entire community that appreciates her culinary skills. It's during a community council meeting 6 weeks after arriving that you face your first major crisis in Haven Valley. A group of survivors arrives at the community gates, 23 people in desperate conditions, including 8 children. They're fleeing from something they describe as bad soldiers who enslave entire communities. Harrison, Tank murmurs when he hears the description. Has to be. Apparently, after you left the military base, internal tensions finally exploded. A group of civilians attempted a revolution, which was brutally repressed. The survivors fled, but Harrison sent patrols to recapture them. They're a day behind us, the refugees' leader explains. Maybe 20 soldiers, armored vehicles. They won't stop. The community enters crisis. Haven Valley was built on principles of peace and cooperation. They have some weapons for defense against walkers, but nothing that could face an organized military force. We could hand over the refugees, a council member suggests, reluctantly. Avoid conflict? Absolutely not, Margaret responds firmly. That's not who we are. Then we fight, Tank declares, and probably die. It's you who proposes a third option. We evacuate. Total silence in the meeting. The entire community? Dr. Porter asks. The entire community, temporarily. There are caves in the mountains that can shelter everyone. We leave some people behind to make it look like life continues normally, but we hide the main population. And then we wait. Harrison can't maintain patrols in the mountains indefinitely. Eventually, he'll have to return to the base or find easier targets. It's a risky plan that requires perfect coordination, but the community votes unanimously in favor. The next 18 hours are a hurricane of organized activity. Essential supplies are packed and transported to the cave. Farm animals are moved to hidden pastures. Evidence of the real population is carefully erased. You, Tank, Marcus, and 2 local volunteers stay behind to maintain the facade. You position yourselves strategically throughout the community, creating the impression of normal activity while everyone else hides in the mountains. Harrison arrives with 20 soldiers and 3 armored vehicles, exactly when the refugees predicted. You watch him through binoculars as he examines the apparently peaceful community. Too small, you hear him mutter to his lieutenants. Not worth the effort. They do a superficial search, interrogate you 5 about recent refugees, and when you deny any knowledge, they decide to continue looking elsewhere. Are you sure you haven't seen anyone? Harrison asks you directly. I'm sure. You lie without hesitation. We're just trying to live in peace here. Harrison studies you for a long moment as if recognizing something familiar. Then he shakes his head and returns to the vehicles. These aren't the refugees we're looking for, he announces to his men. We continue north. You watch the military vehicles disappear on the mountain road and only then allow yourselves to breathe again. The community returns from the caves 2 hours later, and the celebration is quiet but profound. They saved not only the refugees, but also preserved their own way of life. That night, during a special council meeting, Margaret makes an announcement that changes everything. You proved today that you belong here, she says, looking at you and your group. But more than that, you helped us discover something important about ourselves. What? Elena asks. That our community is strong enough to defend itself, but also compassionate enough to protect others. We want to formalize this. She explains that the community voted to establish a refuge network, a coordinated system to help other survivor groups find safety and establish their own cooperative community. You know the outside world better than any of us, Margaret continues. We want you to lead this effort. It's a proposal that completely transforms your perspective on the future. Instead of just surviving day after day, you would have the opportunity to help rebuild civilization based on principles of cooperation instead of domination. Tank, surprisingly, is the first to accept. I spent months thinking brutality was the only way to survive, he says. You showed me I was wrong. I want to help other people learn that too. One by one, everyone agrees. In the following months, you establish contact with survivor groups throughout the region. Some are hostile and need to be avoided. Others are desperate and need immediate help. A precious few are like you were, good people trying to maintain their humanity in an inhuman world. Rosa establishes a food exchange network, teaching other communities about sustainable agriculture and food preservation. Elena creates a basic medical training program that saves countless lives. Marcus develops an educational system that can be adapted for different survivor groups. Tank and Crow train security teams that focus on protection instead of aggression, and you coordinate everything using the leadership skills forged in months of desperate survival for something much more constructive. 2 years after arriving at Haven Valley, the network includes 17 cooperative communities spread across 3 states. It's not much compared to the pre-apocalyptic population, but it's a real beginning of civilizational reconstruction. It's during an annual network meeting that you receive news that closes an important circle in your journey. A group of refugees from Harrison's military base arrived at the network's southernmost community. Apparently, the base finally collapsed completely when the remaining civilians successfully rebelled. Harrison died during the fighting, and the survivors scattered. Among the refugees is someone you recognize, Sergeant Williams, the man who led your first expedition from the base. You were right, he says when you meet. Brutality might work short-term, but eventually it consumes itself. Communities like this, he gestures toward Haven Valley, are the real future. Williams joins the network, bringing valuable military knowledge that is adapted for defensive and logistical purposes. His experience helps protect the cooperative communities against bandit groups without turning them into militarized fortresses. In the 3rd year, something extraordinary happens. You make contact with a similar network that developed independently on the West Coast. Through long-distance radio communication, you discover that the concept of cooperative communities is spreading organically across the continent. Turns out, people are naturally collaborative when they're not afraid. Dr. Porter observes during a discussion about the phenomenon. The apocalypse forced us to be brutal for a while, but our true nature always comes back. It's a revelation that completely redefines how you understand human survival. For months, you believed the apocalypse had revealed humanity's true bestial nature, but now you realize it was just a phase, a traumatic reaction to extreme circumstances. True human nature, you discovered, is the capacity to adapt, learn, and eventually choose cooperation over competition when possible. In the 4th year, you face your biggest challenge yet. A giant horde of walkers, estimated at over 1,000 infected, is slowly moving through the region. It's the kind of threat that could destroy all the communities you've helped build. But instead of panic, there's coordination. The 17 communities work together, sharing resources and strategies. Evacuation groups are organized, escape routes are mapped, supplies are redistributed. And when the horde finally arrives, it finds not isolated and vulnerable communities, but a coordinated network that skillfully diverts it to a remote canyon, where it can be contained and eventually eliminated without significant human losses. It's the final proof that the cooperative model is not just morally superior, but also practically more effective for long-term survival. 5 years after arriving at Haven Valley, you're sitting on a porch you helped build yourself, watching children play in a park that didn't exist when you arrived. Rosa is in the community kitchen, teaching teenagers to prepare preserves for winter. Elena is at the clinic, treating a farmer who broke his arm, a routine injury that could have been fatal before. Marcus is at the school, where he's now principal, telling a class of fascinated children about what the world was like before the apocalypse. Tank and Crow returned from a 2-week mission, helping a new community establish their defenses. It's not the world you lost. It never will be. But it's a world worth living in, and more importantly, a world you helped create. As the sun sets behind the mountains, painting the sky with colors that remain beautiful, even in a world changed forever, you reflect on the journey that brought you here. It started with total despair, waking up alone in a dark basement, convinced the world had ended. It went through devastating loss, painful betrayal, and impossible choices that almost destroyed you. There were moments when giving up seemed not just reasonable, but inevitable. But there was also Sarah, reminding you that maintaining humanity was more important than maintaining life. There was Marcus, showing that people can change and grow even in the most difficult circumstances. There was Tank, proving that even the hardest can learn compassion. And there was Haven Valley, demonstrating that cooperation is not just possible in the apocalypse, it's the key to thriving after it. You didn't just survive the Walking Dead apocalypse, you helped build something better in the ashes of the old world. And that, in the end, is the only victory that really matters. 10 years have passed since that dark morning when you woke up in the cold basement somewhere in rural Georgia. An entire decade of changes that transformed not just you, but the very concept of what it means to rebuild a civilization. Haven Valley now houses more than 500 people. What began as a small mountain community has evolved into something that resembles a 21st century small town, but with wisdom forged by the apocalypse. The houses are more robust, the gardens more efficient, the defenses smarter. Every building, every system, every tradition has been tested against the brutal reality of survival. You're standing atop the communications tower, a 20-meter structure that Marcus designed and Tank supervised the construction of. From here, you can see the full extent of the transformation that has taken place. The cooperative network has grown beyond the most optimistic expectations. 63 communities now form part of what is officially called the Free Valleys Alliance. Each maintains its autonomy and unique culture, but all share resources, knowledge, and mutual protection. The system works so well that other similar networks on the West Coast and Midwest have sent ambassadors to study and replicate the model. The numbers from the latest census arrived, Elena announces, climbing the tower stairs with a folder of documents. At 45 years old, she's now the regional medical coordinator, responsible for the health of more than 12,000 people spread across the allied community. And so, you ask, already knowing from her expression that it's good news. Positive population growth for the 7th consecutive year. Infant mortality rate below 2%. Life expectancy returning to pre-apocalyptic standards in established communities. These are statistics that would have seemed impossible a decade ago. In the first year after the collapse, the mortality rate was almost 50%. Now, children are born in clean hospitals, grow up in organized schools, and play in safe parks. And the new contacts? You ask about the other reason for her visit. 3 groups this month, 1 from Tennessee, 2 from North Carolina. The Tennessee group is especially interesting. They've developed hydroponic techniques that could revolutionize our winter agriculture. Knowledge exchange has become the most valuable currency between communities. Each group that survived the apocalypse developed unique solutions to specific problems. When these solutions are shared, everyone benefits exponentially. There's also this, Elena continues, handing over a letter with an official seal. It arrived by mail system this morning. The mail system is one of the innovations you're most proud of, a network of horse messengers and radio stations that connects all allied communities. It's primitive compared to pre-apocalyptic systems, but works with remarkable efficiency. The letter is from Washington, D.C., or rather, what's left of it. In the last 3 years, survivor groups in the capital have begun organizing around the remains of the federal government. They're trying to re-establish some form of national authority and apparently want the Free Valleys Alliance to send representatives to a National Reconstruction Convention. What do you think? Elena asks. You consider carefully. National politics was what led to the problems that caused the apocalypse in the first place, but it also represents the possibility of coordination on an even larger scale. I'll talk to the council tonight, you decide. But my instinct is that we should participate with caution. Elena smiles, always the cautious diplomat. It's true. Over the years, you've become the Alliance's main negotiator, the person other communities seek when they need to resolve conflicts or establish trade agreements. It's a role you never expected to play, but that fits naturally with the leadership skills you developed during the first desperate years. That afternoon, you walk down Main Street of Haven Valley, a road paved with local stones that connects the community's main building. Craft shops sell locally made products. A restaurant serves meals prepared with fresh ingredients from community garden. There's even a bookstore where hand-copied manuscripts preserve knowledge that would otherwise have been lost. In the central square, you find Tank teaching a group of teenagers basic self-defense techniques. At 52 years old, he's leaner than he was, with completely gray hair, but still moves with the precision of a professional soldier. How are the new recruits? You ask, watching the young people practice disarming movements. Good, Tank responds, wiping sweat from his forehead. But I hope they never need to use this for real. It's a sentiment shared by everyone. The last major military threat the Alliance faced was 3 years ago, when a well-organized group of bandits tried to establish a forced protectorate over several smaller communities. The Alliance's coordinated response was so effective that the bandits dispersed without a single shot being fired. Tank, you say, deciding to share the news. A letter arrived from Washington. They want us to participate in a national convention. Tank stops moving and looks directly at you. Federal government? Something like that. Survivor groups trying to rebuild national structures. Tank considers this for a long moment. Could be good, or could be the beginning of someone trying to control us again. That's why we go with caution. I'll go with you, Tank declares. If we go, it's comforting to know that even after a decade, the bonds forged in the worst moments remain intact. Later that night, you stop in front of the house Marcus built on the edge of the community. It's an impressive 2-story structure with a personal library that rivals anything that existed before the apocalypse. Marcus has become the Alliance's unofficial historian, meticulously documenting not just the events of the apocalypse, but also the innovative solutions each community developed. Working late again, you ask, finding him on the porch with a stack of manuscripts. Finishing volume 5, he responds, adjusting the reading glasses Rosa made for him using lenses salvaged from an abandoned optometry shop. History of cooperative agriculture in the post-collapse era. Sounds fascinating, you say, and it actually is. Marcus's volumes have become essential manuals for new communities. His detailed instructions on everything from water purification to conflict resolution have saved countless lives. I heard about Washington, Marcus continues. What do you think? I think we need to go, but as observers, not as subordinates. I agree. We've learned that local autonomy is essential. Any national system needs to respect that. It's a lesson that cost dearly to learn. 2 years ago, one of the Allied communities almost split when a group of purists tried to impose uniform rules on all the others. The crisis was only resolved when they reaffirmed the fundamental principle: voluntary cooperation, never coercion. The next morning, the Alliance Council meets to discuss the Washington proposal. The council has grown from 5 people to 21, representing all regions of the network. Meetings take place in a specially built circular room where no seat is more prominent than others. Rosa presides over the meeting. At 53 years old, she's become one of the Alliance's most respected leaders, known for her ability to find practical solutions to complex problems. Her near-fatal experience with pneumonia made her value life even more, and this perspective is reflected in her decisions. The question before us, she begins, is whether we should participate in this national convention in Washington. Let's hear arguments from both sides. Margaret Chen, now 70 years old, but still mentally sharp, argues in favor of participation. Isolation is not a long-term strategy. If others are trying to rebuild national structures, we need to have a voice in that process. Otherwise, decisions will be made without our consultation. On the other side, Jonathan Rivers, a leader from the mining community to the south, expresses concerns. Every time we get involved with larger structures, we end up losing autonomy. The military base, other groups that tried to incorporate us. Why would this time be different? The debate continues for 3 hours, with valid arguments from both sides. Finally, it's Dr. Porter who suggests a middle ground solution. What if we send a small delegation with limited mandate? They go to observe and report, not to make commitments. That way we can assess the situation without committing ourselves. The proposal is approved by 16 votes to 5. You're chosen to lead the delegation, accompanied by Tank, Elena, and 2 representatives from other regions. The journey to Washington takes 5 days, traveling from community to community through the support network you helped build. It's a trip that would have been impossible alone, but becomes almost luxurious with the cooperative hospitality system. Each night, you sleep in comfortable beds, eat hot meals, and talk with local leaders about the unique challenges of their region. It's a continuing education about the diversity and resilience of post-apocalyptic communities. Washington, D.C. is a visual shock. Much of the city is in ruins, but the center has been partially rebuilt by organized survivor groups. The Capitol serves as the convention headquarters, with its famous steps now guarded by well-organized militias from various factions. The convention brings together representatives from 47 different groups from across the country. There are agricultural communities from the plains, fortified city-states from the Great Lakes, and even representatives from ships that created floating communities along the coast. In the first 2 days, presentations reveal the incredible diversity of solutions different groups developed. Plains farmers created irrigation systems that can function without electricity. City-states developed industries that produce essential tools and medicines. Coastal communities established maritime trade networks that connect survivors across thousands of kilometers. But it also becomes clear that there are fundamental divisions about how to proceed. One group, led by a former senator named Richardson, wants to re-establish federal government with structures similar to those that existed before the apocalypse. They argue that only centralized authority can coordinate sufficient resources to face large-scale threats. Another group, led by a coalition of techno-libertarian communities, wants a completely decentralized system based on voluntary agreements between autonomous entities. They see any central authority as inevitably corrupt. There are also militarist factions that want to establish a permanent national security state, and isolationist groups that participate in the convention only to ensure they're left alone. It's like watching history repeat itself, Elena observes during a break between sessions. The same ideological divisions that existed before the apocalypse, with one important difference, you respond. This time, everyone knows what happens when systems fail completely. On the third day, Richardson approaches the Free Valleys Alliance delegation. I've heard about your success, he says, with the political smile. You've learned to distrust 63 cooperative communities is impressive. Exactly the kind of organization we need on a national scale. Thank you, you respond cautiously. I'd like to propose something. If you support our proposal for reconstituted federal government, I can guarantee the Free Valleys Alliance receives special status, regional autonomy, under federal protection. Tank moves almost imperceptibly closer, and you know he's having the same military base flashbacks you are. What kind of protection? You ask. Military, mainly, against external threats, hostile groups, infected hordes. In exchange, you'd contribute a percentage of resources to the central government, say 20% of agricultural production. It's a proposal that sounds too familiar. Protection in exchange for submission, limited autonomy under central supervision. We'll consider it, you say diplomatically. That night, the Alliance delegation meets in the small room they're sharing. It's the military base in larger version, Tank declares, without beating around the bush. I agree, Elena adds. The language is more polished, but the concept is the same. They want control. But, one of the other delegates argues, it also offers real benefit. National coordination could solve problems that individual communities can't face. It's a debate that extends into the early morning. Everyone sees merit in both perspectives, but in the end, it's shared experience that decides. We vote to reject any proposal that compromises the fundamental autonomy of communities, you announce the next morning. But instead of simply rejecting, you make a counter-proposal. On the fourth day of the convention, you speak before the complete assembly. The Free Valleys Alliance proposes an alternative model. You begin. National cooperation based on specific voluntary agreements, not permanent, centralized authority. You explain the concept, a national network of autonomous communities that cooperate on specific issues, defense against external threats, sharing medical and technological knowledge, resource coordination during emergencies, but that maintain total control over their own internal structures. Instead of a government that governs communities, you conclude, we propose an association of communities that governs itself. The proposal generates intense debate. Some reject it as naive and unworkable. Others see it as the natural evolution of lessons learned during the apocalypse. Surprisingly, it's a representative from the coastal communities who provides crucial support. Our experience at sea taught us that ships work better in coordinated fleets, but each captain must maintain authority over his own ship, he declares. The Alliance proposal applies the same principle to land. At the end of the convention, 3 different models receive significant support. Richardson's reconstituted federal government, the Libertarians' total decentralized system, and the cooperative network proposed by the Alliance. Instead of forcing a single decision, the convention decides to allow different regions to experiment with different models, with annual meetings to share results and potentially converge on better solutions. It's a better outcome than we expected, Elena comments during the trip back. I still think it's a mistake to get involved with national politics, Tank adds, but without usual conviction. Maybe, you respond, but if we don't get involved, other people will make decisions that affect us anyway. The trip back to Haven Valley takes a week, not 5 days, because you stop at several communities to share news from the convention. The reaction is mixed, but generally positive. Most local leaders appreciate that the Alliance maintained its principles while remaining engaged with larger development. 6 months later, the results of the different models begin to become clear. Richardson's reconstituted federal government faces constant rebellions from communities that resent taxes and regulation. The Libertarians' completely decentralized system struggles to coordinate defense against a large horde of infected moving through their region. The Alliance's cooperative network, meanwhile, grows from 63 to 89 communities, including several that previously followed other models. Seems like voluntary cooperation really works better, Rosa observes during a council meeting. For now, you respond, always cautious. Success creates its own challenges. And you're right, the Alliance's rapid growth creates new problems. Cultural differences between distant regions cause misunderstandings. Some communities begin to feel exploited by others that contribute less. There's pressure to centralize more authority to resolve disputes efficiently. It's during a particularly difficult crisis, a dispute over water rights between agricultural and industrial communities, that you have an important realization. The problem isn't that cooperation doesn't work, you tell Elena while walking through Haven Valley's gardens on a starry night. It's that cooperation is an ongoing process, not a final state. How so? We thought if we created the right system, it would work automatically. But people change, circumstances change, new challenges appear. Cooperation only works as long as people actively work to keep it working. It's a lesson that completely transforms how the Alliance approaches problems. Instead of looking for permanent solutions, they focus on continuous processes of negotiation, adaptation, and renewal. 15 years after the apocalypse, you're again on the communications tower, but this time, you're not alone. Dozen young adults, people who were children when you arrived at Haven Valley, are participating in a workshop on community leadership. The most important question any leader can ask, you tell them, isn't, how do I solve this problem, but how do I help my community solve this problem? A 20-year-old young woman named Sarah, named after the woman you could never forget, raises her hand. But what if the community makes the wrong decision? Then you learn from the mistake and try again, you respond. Leadership isn't about always being right. It's about creating conditions where groups can learn and grow together. It's a philosophy forged in years of experience, tested against failures and successes, refined through countless conversations with people wiser than you. After the workshop, you walk to the cemetery on the west side of Haven Valley. It's a small but well-maintained place where residents who died since the community's founding are remembered. There's a special section for lost heroes, people who died before the community was established, but whose sacrifice made its existence possible. Sarah's name is engraved on a simple local granite stone, along with hundreds of others. Diesel, the refugees who couldn't reach the meeting points, people whose names you never knew, but whose deaths helped teach lessons that saved others. We made it, you whisper to the stone. Not the way we imagined, but we made it. A gentle breeze moves the leaves of trees planted around the cemetery, trees that grew from seeds collected from forests where you hid during the first desperate years. 20 years after the apocalypse, Haven Valley is no longer an isolated mountain community. It's the center of a network that extends across half the continent, connecting more than 200 autonomous communities in a complex tapestry of voluntary cooperation. You're no longer the delegation leader or regional coordinator. At 62 years old, you've passed these responsibilities to younger people with fresh energy and innovative ideas. Your role now is what Elena affectionately calls advisory sage, someone who offers historical perspective and advice when requested, but who doesn't make decisions for others. It's a role that fits perfectly with who you've become. Today is a special day. Haven Valley is hosting the 20th annual meeting of the Free Valleys Alliance, where representatives from all communities gather to share innovations, resolve disputes, and plan the future. But more important to you personally, it's also the day the memorial of the first survivors will be inaugurated, a structure dedicated to all the people who died during the initial years of the apocalypse, whose sacrifices made possible the reconstruction that came after. Tank, now 68 years old and officially retired, helped design the memorial. It's a curved wall of local stone where thousands of names are engraved, not just of known heroes, but of ordinary people who chose to help others, even when they had very little to give. Are you going to give the inauguration speech? Tank asks, as you inspect the final details of the construction. No, you respond. Young Sarah will do it. It's time for the next generation to tell our story. Sarah Chen Williams, adopted by Margaret Chen and raised with Williams's surname in honor of the sergeant who joined the Alliance years ago, grew up hearing stories of the early years, but she also represents something new, a generation that never knew the pre-apocalyptic world, that grew up assuming cooperation and community are normal. During the inauguration ceremony, Sarah speaks to a crowd of more than 1,000 people gathered in Haven Valley's central square. These names represent more than death, she says, gesturing toward the memorial. They represent choices at every moment. During the darkest years, these people chose to help instead of harm, protect instead of exploit, build instead of destroy. Her words echo through speakers powered by solar panels, technology that was lost and rediscovered through cooperation between communities. We are their legacy, and our responsibility is to ensure that the choices we make today create an even better world for those who come after us. After the ceremony, there's a community party with music, dance, and food from dozens of different culinary traditions. It's the kind of multicultural celebration that would be familiar to anyone from the pre-apocalyptic world, but with a crucial difference. Every person here knows personally what it costs to keep a community functioning. As the night progresses, you find yourself sitting at a table with your original companions, Tank, Elena, Rosa, Marcus, and Crow, all older, grayer, but still clearly recognizable as the people who met in a collapsing world and chose to trust each other. Any regrets? Rosa asks, a question that has become tradition at meetings like this. Just one, Marcus responds. I wish Diesel were here to see this. He is, Crow says softly. In the memorial, in the stories, in the lessons we learned from his loss. Elena raises her glass of wine, made from grapes grown in Haven Valley's gardens, a toast to the dead who taught us to live and to the living who chose to honor their sacrifices. Everyone drinks in respectful silence. When the party finally ends, you walk alone to the communications tower one last time. From up there, you can see the lights of houses scattered throughout the valley, each representing families living in safety, children growing up with hope, adults working for something greater than simple survival. In the surrounding mountains, other lights blink, signals from allied communities transmitting messages of goodwill and status updates. The network extends as far as your eyes can see and much beyond, connecting millions of people in a tapestry of conscious cooperation. It's not the world that existed before the apocalypse. It's something new, forged by the hardest lessons humanity has ever faced, tempered by the understanding that civilization is something that must be carefully cultivated and protected. You think of Sarah, the first Sarah, who died 20 years ago, but whose words still echo through generations. If you give up being human, then the dead have already won. The dead didn't win. Humanity didn't just survive the apocalypse. It emerged wiser, more compassionate, more aware of the value of cooperation and community. As the stars shine above, the same stars that offered comfort during lonely nights decades ago, you finally allow yourself to feel something you haven't experienced in a long time. Complete satisfaction. You didn't just survive. You helped ensure that humanity not only survived, but thrived. And tomorrow, a new generation will continue building on the foundations you established, creating wonders you can barely imagine. The apocalypse is over. The reconstruction is complete. The real adventure, humanity's future, is just beginning.